Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the age-old question, or at least, as old as emails are. Cold calling versus cold emailing. Which is better? Which should you do? Some people say cold calling is totally redundant and should be left in the past, along with all of your exes. And some people think that cold emailing is just a spam and pointless. I'm just gonna come out and say the truth, and that is both work. Both, they're so wildly different that they really can't be compared. There's so many variables, to be honest. Yeah, the truth is both work. Maybe it's not about choosing which one to do, but how to incorporate them both in your agency, in your business. So I guess the best thing to do is just to hop into the pros and cons of each. And no matter what though, I just advise you to try out both for yourself. So let's start off with my favorite, cold emailing. What are some good things about cold emailing? Firstly, it's super scalable, especially if you have some sort of automation tool. But even just without tools, it's far more scalable than cold calling. You can maybe with 2 or 3 hours work, maybe you can send like 200 emails, whereas cold calling, it takes longer, just the dialing process or whatever. It's just not as scalable, and maybe you can make 10 calls in a morning, just because as well, the emotional impact. By the way, I just want to take a breather right now, because on my channel, in these videos, I'm going to be talking about emotions a lot in a business, because I think it's something that isn't talked about in the entrepreneurial space a lot. The emotional struggles, the emotional effects, the mental side of things. Maybe that's because it's mainly men making these videos. I don't want to be like sexist or make generalizations or anything, but generally, well, anyway, I'm doing generalizations. Men don't really love to talk about their feelings. Mostly these like SMMA videos or like an intro of like these guys in their fancy cars with some like hip hop beats. It's very kind of macho, for want of a better word. So yeah, maybe that's where I can come in with my womanly touch, because I love talking about emotions. So scalable, yeah. A lot more scalable. With that, of course, time efficient. It's a lot more time efficient. You can send out a lot more emails than you can calls in a space of time. And also with emailing, you can email 24/7. You know what I mean? You can set up your emails for the week with some automation tools like Mailshake. With cold calling, you have to work within business hours and avoiding their most busy times, and you've got a lot less time to work with. And especially if starting your agency is your side hustle and you have a full-time job, it's gonna be I don't want to be a downer, but maybe impossible to cold call to the extent that you need to cold call. Maybe you can do it on your lunch break, but your lunch break is probably their lunch break, and yeah, so less time efficient. And then on the weekends, of course, a lot of businesses are closed. As well with emails, maybe with emails, more qualified leads. If you call people, some people will just say anything to get you off the phone. So they'll be like, yeah, I'll meet you tomorrow. And they have no intention of ever meeting you. Whereas email, if they they don't have to reply. So they're more likely going to be more interested and more committed to the meeting if they reply, because they're really making the choice to reply and to set up that meeting. Another pro is there's more templates that you can experiment and test with cold emailing, whereas cold calling, there's not so much. Now let's get into the cons of cold emailing. Yes, as much as I love it, there are definitely cons. It requires a lot of waiting. So you could send out an email and maybe they're not going to open it for another 2 days. Another obvious con is a lot of people see emails as spam, and a lot of times maybe it'll go to spam. There's some things you can do to avoid it going to spam. Having your own like G Suite account is something I definitely recommend as a must. So it's like your name @business.com rather than mickeyBobbyjoe@hotmail.com. Cold emailing also can be quite tedious and lonesome. And again, we're going to talk about emotions. You know, if you're sitting at your computer for hours, just emailing, and not getting any immediate like interaction with people, it can be quite isolating, I guess. But yeah, so it can be tedious and time consuming. Of course, you know, there are automation tools that can take away from the tedious and time consumingness of it. But yeah, it can be lonely. I mean, that's just entrepreneurship in general. There's going to be some tasks that are a lot of staring at the computer, and it can just on your own and just not interacting with people. So that is the pros and cons of cold emailing. Let's talk about the pros and cons of cold calling. Maybe you have a headset, actually. This is the universal hand motion for a headset. I'm going to start with an interesting kind of pro that I found, is that cold calling takes away the awkwardness and nerves of the initial meeting. I was finding, you know, I was setting up meetings over email, and then when it came to the meeting, it was always like, this person is a stranger. I've only sent 1 or 2 or maybe 3 emails, messages back and forth. It was scary. But you know, and you don't know what type of person they are over email. They don't know what type of person you are. You can't really build rapport over email. But with cold calling, you've already spoken to them. Maybe you've had a little bit of small talk. So they're not a complete stranger when you get on the meeting. Almost, yeah, you've sort of got a little bit of rapport, trust, familiarity with them, which is good overall, and just good for yourself, for your nerves. At least I found anyway. Another pro, you get immediate feedback in a lot of cases. You either get a yes, no, maybe, call back. It's very immediate. You don't have to wait for them to open it, wait for them to respond. You don't have to do follow-up sequences. It's just immediate. And sometimes you can just move on, be like, nope, they're not interested. Or yes, great, meeting booked. You know, you can make a phone call and have a meeting booked. You know, you can make 10 phone calls, and you know, if it's a great day and you're good at it, have 3 phone calls booked. So then you have that sense of like, whew, that was time well spent. That was, you know, just immediate gratification, I guess you could say. Another thing, it's voice-based, so it's more personal. With reading an email, it kind of depends what mood they are in at the time. They could be like reading in a sarcastic voice in their head, or like, you know what I mean? If they're in a bad mood, they're going to read it differently from when they're in a good mood. But you get to set the tone, and you get to provide value almost straight away by being happy. Not over the top happy, but just like bring your personality. Yeah, and they can see it's a real person, or they can hear it's a real person. A cold calling con is that it is very emotionally draining for a lot of reasons. I procrastinated cold calling for a very long time because I was like, you know what, I'm getting a good amount of success with cold emailing. Do I really need to do cold calling? But I was like, no, look, I have to do it. I don't even have any phobia of phones or anything. I don't have any social anxiety. And I would describe myself as somewhat confident, somewhat outgoing. But still, when it came time for me to make my first cold call, it took me an hour to get the courage to press that call button, to do it, you know. And I was frustrated at myself because like, what's wrong with me, you know? So, and then whenever I actually finally made the call, my heart was pounding. Yeah, I guess I'll tell you the story of my first cold call. It was to a tanning salon in Cork, actually. Oh, I just said where I live. Cork is a big place, it's fine. I deliberately picked a niche for my first batch of cold calling that wasn't like a great niche, because I was like, you know what, I'm probably gonna suck, so I want to get out my practice cold calls on a niche that's not that good. So, you know, I didn't want to like call real estate agents and mess it up, you know? So yeah, finally did it, called, I had my script, went through it, and it was almost like depersonalization or something while I was doing it. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm finally doing it. Like in my head, that's what I was thinking. So I don't know. I probably came across very nervous. So halfway through my sentence, I heard her audibly sigh, like just sigh, just the biggest sigh. And she interrupted me and said, oh, it was like, all right, okay, call me back tomorrow. I was like, yeah, sure, no problem, absolutely, understand, totally. Any particular time? Like, and yeah, basically, I had called at 5:30 p.m. for a tanning salon is like, I mean, everyone's going in after work. It was their busiest time. So yeah, I guess I'm just warning you, even as a confident person who has no problem with phone calls, it can be emotionally draining. And also not just the nerves, but you know, even once you get used to the nerves and all that, just people saying no, people hanging up on you, people being maybe abusive. Nobody's been abusive to me, but you know, you never know. Another con is it's hard to actually get the person, like the business owner, on the phone. So most of it's going to be writing down quickly, blah, 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 person, call back this time. Huh. Or asking, or they're going to give you an email for them, or they'll very rarely give you a personal mobile number for them because they'll probably get in trouble for that. Another con, it's very hard to scale up. Like I said, yeah, I feel like I'm just going to be repeating myself now. But yeah, unless you want to hire a sales team, which is a possibility, and you take a commission or whatever, but you know, maybe at the start you don't want to do that. Yeah, it's hard to scale up. I think I've covered all the pros and cons of each. If you thought of any more, please do let me know down below. Please tell me your first cold call experience and your first cold email experience, and we can share experiences. And that's it. Thanks so much for watching, guys.